Cecilia Bonefeld-Dahl.
Yeah, so I guess this will be on in a second. Thank you. So I'm not very good at standing still when I present, so I will try to move a bit around, but I both have the clicker and the microphone, so it might be a bit difficult. So if I do like this at a certain point, please excuse me. So who am I? My name is Cecilia. I've been in the IT industry for my whole life. Yes, more or less my whole life, at least the adult life. I started working for IBM while I was still studying, and then I joined Oracle. Then I actually went solo and made my own company. I started a company also in China, or a subsidiary in China. Traveled most of my life in digital. But 12 years ago, my wish to make a difference on a political level became strong, and I got involved in several associations in the Foreign Ministry of Denmark, and really looking at how I could make a difference in an age where, when I joined digital, they all said, "Why do you want to be in digital? It's like something IT in the basement, you know, with white socks and Coca-Cola and I was trying to convince them that digital was the one and only factor that would change productivity, growth, but also might scare the population of many countries because it would create a huge change. And I feel a huge responsibility in my role to take Europe into that digital era in a good and responsible way, and in a close collaboration between industry and governments, and not least EU. Let me tell you a little bit before we start why. So the minister talked about responsibility, tradition and renewal. We are still 28, 27 countries, and how do we make digitalization that factor that really integrates us? The biggest difference of this digital age is that we had gone from scale of production to scale of markets. Look at the fastest growing companies. Who are they? How did they grow? They grew by market share, not by scale of production. They grew based on data. And that is the transformation that our society is going through at the moment. So how can we actually define, so I'm Danish, so I can say that. How can we define Denmark as a market? I'm so sorry, but it's not. How can we define another European country as a one market? Well, it's not. We are simply too small. There are two types of countries in Europe. There are the small countries and the countries that knows that they are small. And why is that important? It's important because we need a home market for our companies to grow. And that home market is not Denmark. And we discovered that a long time ago. That's why we mainly export. But we need a European market to stand together, to basically go through that digital transformation in a way that is the European way. That doesn't mean protectionism. It doesn't mean closed borders. It means more innovation. It means more unfragmented market for the European and non-European companies to grow. So the minute we start saying, we do it differently here, this is my country, I will close the borders, that's where we have lost. We need to do what we are best at. We need to digitalize in a responsible, good manner, in a close collaboration between public and private sector. I really strongly believe that. Okay, let me try. I'm not very good at keeping my slides going on, but I will try to flip a couple of slides. Who are we? We represent around 36,000 digital companies in Europe. We have 40 associations in the countries with all kinds of companies, going from SMEs, scale-ups, to the biggest multinational companies. We made this matrix 2 years ago. And why? Because for years and years, we've been going around saying digitalization is all over. It's all over society. But now it is. And we have several new companies just this year joining us in the different verticals. So traditionally, our skills have been within digital policies, and it still is. So we work with digital policy and digital investment in Europe, but not only for the digital companies. So we have companies like Siemens, Bosch, Arcelor joining us at the moment in the vertical of manufacturing. We have companies like Philips Healthcare, Samsung, who's very engaged in healthcare, MSD joining us in the health vertical. Why? Basically because digital is no longer only for digital companies. We call it the digitalizing industries. Everything is changing. Right now, the medical sector predicts that 25% of their profits will come out of predictive services based on data in just 10 years. And it might even go faster. That means not production of medicine, but predictive services, preventive services. So they are able to actually prevent the disease before it happens, not treat it after the breakout. So every sector is going through this transformation, and everything is based on the availability of data. So that takes me to the next point. We cannot have valid data sets for the relevant data services within one European country. We need bigger data sets to be able to predict diseases, to be able to predict weather conditions or transportation or more efficient public services. We need better data sets. And we can only have that if we actually collaborate and open the data for each other within Europe. Many governments, especially the Nordic ones, have opened public data way back. And that has created a wealth of company growth, scale-ups on top of the data services. I really hope that, that this will be a European trend, that we use our data and that we collaborate instead of protecting ourselves and being afraid of using the data. Data is a raw material. It's not about hiding the data or protecting the data. We know how to do that. We have very good legislations in Europe that make sure that we take care of our citizens. And we might have to revise some of them or to adjust some of them, of course, to modernize the framework. But it's a little bit like any other tool. It's not about the tool itself, it's about how you use it. We can use data for public good, or we can use data for doing bad. This is our choice, and I think we already made the choice. But it's not the data itself that can harm you. It's the way that you treat it and the way that you use it, and I have high trust that Europe actually knows how to do that. So let's look a little bit into the challenges it brings. It brings challenges to the industry, transformation of industries, but it definitely also brings a challenge to the citizens and not least the governments. How to handle that in a system where it takes 8 years to change a curricula? I have this saying, I think that people are scared because they don't know. Democracy is always about having an enlightened population. Once they know, once they understand, once they have the right skills, they are not scared anymore because they can participate in the democracy. And therefore, the digital skills are extremely important. And I think, honestly, if I go to the governments of Europe, if there is one thing I would criticize strongly, it is the ability of changing our school system, to adapt our educational system to a changing environment fast enough to make sure that our populations are not only users of IT, but creators of IT, that they have the right computational thinking skills so they can be creative, so they can really know how to integrate in public services, in new product development, in marketing, in any kind of function, how to integrate the digital thinking or the computational thinking. This is a skill that we have lacked out on, and we are super busy. And if I, as a citizen, going down to myself, I have 5 teenagers, if I look at their everyday life, I mean, the amount of time they use at their devices is incredible. But do they actually create value with it? Do they? No. Okay, so does You know, the life of a teenager does not change from giving them something where they can, you know, they know how to do that. They know that from there too. What they need is the skills, the real skills on how to create, how to integrate it in public service, how to rethink concepts. There is only one universal language. Coding. English? No. Spanish? No. Chinese? No. French? No. Coding? Yes. None of them know how it functions. When I ask them, how does this text box, how is it made? They have no idea. It's even worse than me, because I actually did some coding in the past. So, but this is really, really crucial. So one thing I would like to ask you to go back to your governments and say, this is not working. And 8 years is not working. Right now in October, we have the Code Week. So if you don't already have a big Code Week event in your country, please reach out, just Google Code Week and you will see a big EU project on Code Week. This is super, super important. So, obligation number one of governments, make sure that you have an enlightened population that has the right skill for the future. And shame on you if you don't. So, let's look a little bit on the digital growth drivers. Well, we know for sure that companies that adopt technologies perform way, way better. This means that we are a little bit busy getting our companies up to speed. We also look at the fastest growing companies and learn that the 4 digital companies' revenue grew by, it talks for itself, 450% in the last 10 years. Looking at competitive sectors, the numbers, even though they are impressive, are much lower. Again, then people say, ooh, we should protect ourselves against all these growth companies. No, they just got it and others didn't. How can we replicate that in sectors where we are strong? And what are the sectors where we are strong? Well, let's look at what we're really good at. We are super good at public sector, right? We're very good at public services in Europe. We're super good at that. So let's start there. How can we actually do it? And I guess that's the audience that I'm speaking to today. So just one thing, I had some very good discussion of public procurement. And I said, how, for example, Germany, the spendings, if I'm not wrong, is around 3 billion euros per year in IT spendings, in public IT spendings. So how is it that our scale-ups, our environment for digital can really be fostered and driven and grow around also the public procurement? That is a question that I really urge you to discuss. Do we have equal opportunities for scale-ups and innovative companies developing technologies in Europe? How many think, okay, the camera is on me, so you can put your hand up, don't fill them. How many think we have equal opportunities for small scale-ups and other established companies? Okay, thank you. Speaks for itself. This means that this is one question you need to pose to yourself. How do we create equal opportunity for actually getting orders for innovative scale-ups in Europe in the public procurement system? Taking me to this one. We fail in making digital unicorns. Why? Why? Because we don't spend them enough money? Because we don't have innovative people? Well, for me, it's two things. It's a fragmented market. We are still not one European market. Let's get there ASAP. Because only together we stand tall in a world where scale matters. So it's not about keeping, your backyard and this is my power. It's about creating friends, a team. Back to the team, a European team that can really work together and create one big market where companies can grow. Right now, we know that the Nordic countries lead in scale-ups. They're super good at it. But where do they go? 2/3 leave in the first 2 growth rounds. You have the growth jumps. They leave for the States. The rest are going to China or Israel. Why do they leave? Because the market is too difficult to enter. If you are a Danish scale-up and you look at going to France, it's just too difficult, or going to Germany, it's too difficult. So how can we make it super easy for these companies also to grow in Europe? So, and maybe there is something in public procurement too. That is definitely one of the places where we lead and where we can take leadership. Okay, so just saying, what do we do as an association? So last year we founded a tech scale-up award. And we had last year, I think, 15 countries nominating their coolest tech innovation scale-up. And Commissioner Gabrielle is the mother of this, so she's the one handing out the award. Last year we had Finland won with something called Airfast, which is like an Airbnb for manufacturing sector, basically on-demand production platform. We still hope to keep some of them for a while here and foster them, but for us, year after year, we will build and observe these scale-ups and how they develop, and also create an ecosystem around them of big and small companies working together to make sure that we actually keep a good, innovative scale-up environment in Europe. I'll skip Austria because I know that a lot of people talk about Austria. So, but another initiative I want to mention, a European initiative, is the Digital Jobs and Skills Coalition. We discussed it a bit yesterday. Austria don't have one yet. 21 countries does. I'm sure that we will have one in Austria. But this is basically one of the frameworks that in EU will be the framework for fostering digital jobs and digital growth, digital skills. It has been now for 4 years established, and in the new MMF, this will be one of the main structure on how to drive this forward. A coalition is basically a close collaboration between government and private sector associations, teachers associations that discuss and invest and decide investment on how to foster digital skills and jobs. Only with this, with skills, I would say with the right competences, with the right common European market, we can basically keep that environment of innovation here. And that is exactly what we need to grow in digital. One last thing I want to highlight: nothing happens without connectivity. I don't know why we have had a lot of focus at highways and bridges, but you know, this actually gives the opportunity for all citizens. I think it should be a citizen right to be connected in a digital era. We need basically everybody to have equal right to be connected to the public services, to the educational system, no matter where they live. And it will also solve a lot of the problems where people live outside the cities, where they have an opportunity in staying home and working where they are. And there is nothing that will happen, nor the digitalization of industry, of public sector, or more digital skills if we do not have a connected world. We have still a way to go, but there is a lot of growth to pick up in basically investing in 5G and a connected environment. So just summing up, I'm not finished, I'm not even half finished, but just summing up, because I promised you not to go over time, I would say the question of how can we foster public procurement that really fosters and keep that innovative environment around tech development in public sector? Question mark for the discussion later. How can we make sure that our populations have the right digital skills so our companies stay here and don't lack the skills? It must be one of the main obligations of the government. And how can we make sure that we do this together as a group in Europe, and instead of trying to fight each other, stand together and create a competitive market internally in EU. Thank you.